Hello! I said today's video would be a chapter review, but then I realized I should probably ask you what you want. So I put up a community tab asking, do you want more live action content or do you want the chapter review? And y'all said live action, so that's what we're here for. My plan was to double these up, talk about episodes 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, then 4 and 5. You understand how math works. But I really didn't like episodes 3 and 4. At all. And I feel like I can boil down the reasons why these 2 episodes didn't work very well for me pretty quickly, so I'm just gonna do that and then move on to episodes 5 and 6 because these were my favorite ones so far. I still haven't watched the final 2 episodes, but these were my favorite ones so far and I'm so excited to talk about them. So quickly, let's talk about Syrup Village first. And before I go into why, I want to complain real quick about these camera angles because they're killing me. They bothered me in the first 2 episodes too, but I, could get over it, but it was the worst offender in these 2 episodes. So far this series is really obsessed with the really close-in shots. And it's annoying to me because a lot of times we'll have a group conversation or even just a one-on-one conversation, and rather than showing perspective of this conversation, they'll just zoom in on Luffy, zoom in on Zoro, zoom in on Nami, zoom in on Luffy, and they'll just each individual actor will say their lines with this really close zoom, which to me ruins the flow of the conversation because it feels like someone shoved a camera in their face and said, okay, say your line, instead of feeling like a conversation is happening, and it bothers me. But in these episodes, there were scenes where it was because they love these close-in zooms, and because a lot of times they're doing it with a wide angle lens, you've got this distorted face with a distorted and blurred background, and it just doesn't look good, and I just don't like it. Anyway, the episodes. So we start off with the Jolly Roger, and I love that they included this. I love how bad it looks. I love this scene. I'm also really okay with Usopp starting off as working in the shipyard, or at least looking after that ship, and already starting off by kind of projecting a certain air, and then whenever Luffy's like, he's gonna sell it to us, he's like, well, okay, well, hang on, okay, technically. I think it's a good introduction for Usopp as far as showing his love for the ship, as well as that leading into him being like, I can introduce you to the owner of the ship though. I have a special back entrance way. Let's just go around this way. And both Zoro and Nami can see right through this and know that he's sneaking in, but it shows the naivete and the trustfulness of Luffy, so I thought all that worked really well. Even little add-ons that are just character moments, like whenever they go to change and Nami is like, what about this outfit? How do I look now? And Luffy's just like, you look like Nami. That's such a Luffy thing to not really pick up on context and to not really have that, what you would expect, that whoa, she's so beautiful moment, which is kind of like that tropey response, and instead he's just like, I don't get why you're asking me this. And the bonding with Nami, picking out Zoro's clothes, it all worked out for me. Even the Usopp-Kaya fight, when Usopp realized who Kuro was, I'm really bad with names, realized who Kuro was and wanted to warn Kaya, and she didn't believe him, and they had that altercation, they had that fight that led to Usopp saying, I don't care if you believe me, I'm standing by you. I thought that was all really good. So there are positives. However, let me tell you my baggage. So I don't like Kuro. My main problem being that he has this 3-year plan to earn the trust of everybody in town so that when Kaya signs over her fortune to him, no one will think anything of it because he's been her loyal servant who's cared for her all this time. He's the only family she has left, blah. All that, sure, fine. You wanna live your life in security and comfort and you don't want anyone to suspect you, fine. But then why, when Mary tells you, Kaya did this nice thing for you, isn't this a sweet selfless gift? Why does he randomly go, you know what? Murder. I'm gonna be a villain right now. Smashes glasses, kills Lamboy, runs off, and leaves body to be found. I get it. You're not gonna be present when the body is found, so maybe no one will suspect you, but do you not think that on the same day that a body is found in the mansion and then Kaya accidentally dies, and then also Kaya's will is signed over to you, do you not think anyone will draw a line and say, huh, these things seem connected? It's like you've been working at this plan for 3 years and then you throw it all away on an impulsive murder that was completely unprovoked. and then you just continue to go about your plan as if you haven't just disrupted the whole thing. It just bothers me because he's actually provoked. There's actually a reason why he attacks Mary, and Mary actually dies in this scene. So I like that too. However, even though they made his plan a little bit better, still, after he kills Mary, he just goes and hides in the shadows for no reason. And then whenever the main characters of the story stumble on the body, he slinks out of the shadows and says, well, well, well. Just roll credits at that point. I mean, like, if you're gonna make it that cheesy, I'm not going to find this villain intimidating. I'm just not. Anyway, all that rant. The point of me saying that was, this is a villain I already didn't like. That probably does affect it somewhat, because then whenever Kuro turned into this really cheesy villain, I was just like, great, I can hate him in 2 places now. So that probably plays a factor in this, but I really don't think it plays a massive factor in it, because I did find Kuro in the live action crazy cheesy. The well, coming out of the shadows to confront the protagonist, I think was so cheesy. Him going up and down the halls, scraping his nails along the wall, going, Kaya, for like 30 minutes was cheesy. Him going into the room where they're now cornered and hiding under a table and saying lines like, there's more rats than I thought there were. Maybe this house needs a cat in it, or like that line was so painfully bad. I found Kuro to be very cheesy. I already don't like him in the manga. In the live action, so cheesy. And I think that this plot line was so dragged out. It went on for so long. I think part of it is because pretty much this whole arc took place in the mansion. We really didn't leave the mansion much at all, and if we did, it was just for short little brief moments. And so I just got a little bit tiring, and this is coming from someone who Spooky Mansion is one of my favorite settings. Most of my favorite horror novels are set in haunted mansions. I love spooky mansions. But this wasn't really spooky to me because Kuro wasn't a scary villain to me. My husband has never had any interest in reading or watching One Piece. The series just doesn't interest him at all, and he watched the first 2 episodes of One Piece, of the live action, with me, and told me at the end of it, please don't watch the next 2 without me. Wait for me because I want more of this world. But in the second episode, in episode 4, he paused the show, turned to me and said, I don't know this story. I don't know what this is all building to, but can we get out of this mansion already? I'm bored. So I know a lot of people love these episodes, which is why I feel a little bit bad going in on them so hard, but at least one other person, I felt validated. Another change they made that I thought worked was with the soup. I fully expected them to cut Django. I was not surprised at all that they did, and replacing him with poison soup makes sense. It's, it's like, it's a simple solution, but it works, I think. However, having the crew all meet down, or having the crew, Usopp, Zoro, and Luffy all meet up in the kitchen for their different reasons, and Luffy just drinking the entire pot of soup was also it just didn't work for me, because yes, Luffy absolutely would do that 100%, but why was the soup left out? Did you not plan on giving that soup to Kaya the next day? Did you just give up on your plan? Do you not want to kill her anymore? Why was it just left sitting there all night long? And even worse, sure, go ahead, tell me, well, maybe the poison preserves it. Maybe they don't care if it's a little bit rotten and stinky because it's gonna kill her anyway. Go ahead, tell me those reasons. But Luffy drinking the soup, passing out, being drug out to the woods, and then he wakes up and now all of a sudden he's in a new setting, standing with new people. Kobe, what are you doing here? We never got that reaction. He just woke up, he's like, I know Kuro's plan. I didn't hear it, but I know it. I've figured it out, which is fine because it's a very, it's a very obvious plan. I've figured it out and I know what I need to do. And I'm perfectly fine with this change of setting and everyone that's around me. I have no comments about that. I thought that was so silly. Also, I take issue with Zoro getting knocked out after 1 hit in the head with a bottle. Zoro is stronger than that. I'm okay with them kind of playing down how strong these characters are. It's live action, the toughness of the characters. I understand you have to make an adjustment, that's cool. But 1 hit in the head with the bottle for Zoro, and then he's knocked out for for so long. Anyway, it didn't work for me because I found Kuro to be a very generic, cheesy villain, and we just hung out in the house for a really long time. I feel like there's so much world to explore, and there's so much plot that's being condensed and streamlined, which I expected for this series. But saga-wide, East Blue-wise, so much is being condensed. It's just kind of wild to me that they chose to focus this much time on this mansion and on Usopp talking about his crush on Kaya and Nami and Kaya bonding at the bay window, having Kuro walk around the house for a really long time calling after Kaya. It just like, it's weird to me that we have so much to do and we have so much to try to fit into 8 episodes, and this much time was spent on this particular plot line. And I do think that the bell hit at the end between Luffy and Kuro was done well. When it happened, again, my husband paused the show and he was like, "That was really cool. We could have done that 40 minutes ago." So I really feel like these 2 episodes could have been condensed into 1 episode, and that would have made it a lot better for me. And then maybe we could have given that 2nd episode to Romance Dawn, making that 2 episodes instead of trying to cram so much into that 1st episode. Or we could have given that extra episode of Syrup Village to the end and elongate Arlong Park a little bit. I still haven't seen Arlong Park, so I might be wrong. And then give us Logue Town at the end, because I'm pretty sure they cut that. I'm not sure. Again, I haven't finished the series yet, but either putting that episode at the beginning or the end I think would have suited better, because I just don't think we needed 2 episodes for this plot. Plus, with how much time we spent on these episodes, we managed to not put hardly any emphasis on Usopp's dream. I mean, pretty much all of Usopp's focus on this arc was on protecting Kaya, and that should be there, but we should also be focusing on Usopp's dream. In a series, the live action, where they have put a significant amount of focus on people's dreams, it's so weird to me that Usopp got almost none of that care. And so when he does board the ship to join the Straw Hats, it's like, but why? Why would you do that? Kaya's the one you care about. Why are you leaving her now? So maybe if they had put more emphasis on that flashback, because that flashback really didn't, again, it fell flat. It didn't have the impact that I think it needed to have on Usopp's story, and so his dream is just kind of lost in the arc to me. Now, Zoro's flashback was given time and care and attention, and I actually think that of these 4 episodes, Zoro's flashback is the strongest one so far. I'll take that back after we talk about Sanji's flashback, but for the 4 episodes, Zoro is the strongest one so far. I thought it was done really well. I thought it had a lot of impact. I thought that the addition of her funeral was really well executed. It was a little bit weird to break it up throughout Usopp's arc. I would have preferred for it to maybe be at the end of these episodes, or if these episodes were condensed into 1 episode, it could be at the beginning of Baratier. Anyway, I've already talked about these a little bit longer than I planned to, because I know a lot of people love these episodes, and I'm not trying to be the downer in the room, but I didn't like them, and that's why. Now, I would like to move on to the next 2 episodes, because those are easily my favorite ones so far. I sobbed at one point during these episodes, and I'm gonna watch them again after I film this, not because of any like, oh, I need it for content. I just really want to watch them again. But before we transition into the hype episodes for me, a shout out to today's sponsor, Helix. Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses and bedding that are customized to fit your needs and conveniently shipped right to your door. You start off by taking the Helix Sleep Quiz. They customize this quiz so that you're matched with a mattress according to your unique needs. The questions are based on different sleep positions and firmness preferences. They have something for everyone's taste. And if you sleep with your partner, then you can take this quiz together and find something that works perfect for both of you. I personally sleep on either my side or my stomach, and I like a medium firmness, and my husband sleeps on his side and likes a firm mattress. So we were matched with the Helix Twilight. It's been amazing. The combination of foam and springs is so cozy. It's so much more comfortable than any other mattress I've had. We both fall asleep so fast and get such a good night's sleep on this mattress. We love it so much. Plus, the process of taking the quiz and buying online was so easy and so much more convenient than going to a store. And they deliver the mattress right to your door with free US shipping. The mattress comes rolled up in a box, and it's so easy to set up yourself. I personally unboxed and set up this mattress on my own, and it was so easy. Plus, they include a 10-year warranty and offer financing options and flexible payment plans. Other mattress companies use fiberglass as a flame retardant in their products, but Helix mattresses are free of harmful fiberglass materials. In fact, Helix owns its own manufacturing facility, which is entirely free from products containing fiberglass. You can personalize your mattress even more by adding a Glacio Tex cooling cover, which helps you to stay cool and comfortable while you sleep. If you happen to be a hot sleeper, this would be perfect. Just click the link in my description or go to helixsleep.com/Murphy Napier to learn more about this offer. Thank you, Helix, for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you for checking them out. Okay, so episode 4 ended with the attack, it ended with them fighting over who the captain is. So glad they kept that in. I think that that's important, especially if we're gonna make it to Enies Lobby, or Water 7, especially if we're gonna make it to Water 7. I love that. And also with the attack from Garp, which flows into the next episode. So, I like this change. They have brought, and I didn't talk about the presence of the Marines in Syrup Village, which also took up a lot of time because I feel like I can just talk about it all right here. So obviously what they're doing is they're taking the cover pages of Garp training up these cadets and they're including it in the story, which I think is fine. I understand that they have to kind of condense a lot of the story and streamline a few things. So bringing that to the forefront so that they have a little bit more fluidity. Instead of introducing a bunch of side characters that play certain roles, instead they're bringing out a very important character, Garp, and they're bringing him into the story earlier on, playing a large role in the story, I should say, early on, and helping him to sort of fill some of the patchwork of them removing so much. So I understand the point of this, and I think that it works in some ways, doesn't work in others. This is a way that I felt like it worked. I really liked taking this scene with Garp throwing the cannonballs at Luffy, pulling that from later in the manga and putting it here in replacement and replacing Full Body's confrontation with this one. I think that worked. I think it was a nice nod to the manga. My one complaint about this is that I do know a couple of people who are early on in the manga and thought they could watch the live action because it covers Ace Blue and got spoiled by the Garp's your grandpa reveal, which sucks. But I thought this confrontation was handled really well. I loved the Garp actor's performance when he was really irritated that he didn't do what he needed to do, but then that turned into a laughter and a that's my boy kind of thing. I thought he nailed that. I really loved it. And it also put an emphasis on the conflict of Kobe having to directly fight against Luffy. So I like it for those reasons. I do have some grief with how much they're putting this plot line into the story right now because, again, we're having to condense and cut a lot to make all of East Blue fit into 8 episodes. And I don't know that the Garp plot line needs to be taking as much screen time as it is. Sometimes it feels like it's taking unnecessary amounts of screen time, and I would like to condense the amount that they're including this plotline. Though I have no issue with them including it, I would just like it to be a little bit less and focus more on the Straw Hats and on the world and on beefing up the side characters a little bit. I also really like that they took the opportunity with this confrontation to show how inexperienced of sailors they are, like having the cannonballs just laying loosely on the deck and then they scatter everywhere and they don't really know the nautical terms for sailing, and just generally it shows we're really new to this. We're brand new pirates, brand new sailors, and we're not sure what we're doing. I like that. I also like that they took this opportunity to continue to build on the characterization of the Straw Hats and on their dynamics, like Luffy kind of secluding himself a little bit after he saw his grandpa, and then the crew being like, how do we comfort him? We're not really a team. We don't really know how to do this. And Zoro, of all people, gets the task of doing it. And he's like, so you want to talk about it? Nope. Okay, good talk. Like, I thought that was fun. And in this version, they have Garp sending Mihawk after Luffy. And that's how we get the confrontation with Mihawk and Zoro, which is definitely a big change. And they also moved on Krieg to this, where Mihawk just kills him right here. and then moves on to go get Luffy, huge. And I have mixed feelings about moving Don Krieg here. I'm glad that they gave him kind of an homage. If they're gonna cut him, cutting him in that way, you know, cool, at least they acknowledge his existence. I have mixed feelings about this though, but we'll talk about it later on in this video. So Sanji, I love Sanji's introduction. I think Taz makes an excellent Sanji. I love that they started out with him being a line cook, and the way he got into the waitstaff is not that everybody jumped ship, all the waitstaff jumped ship, it's that he cares about food. He cares about creating something great for people, and that doesn't fit in with the time scheme or the dynamics of this restaurant, so he gets kicked off the line, and that kind of shows the confrontation of him and Zeph really quickly. It shows his love and passion for food really quickly, and it gives reason for why he shows up being a waiter in such a bad mood. So he shows up at the Straw Hat table, insulting the food, insulting the restaurant, and when Nami kind of calls out his attitude, he then shifts and turns on the charm. So in this live action, again, I didn't expect these characters to be our Straw Hats. I expected them to be a new interpretation of the Straw Hats because it would be ridiculous to expect them to be exactly like the manga. So I expected their characters to be a little bit different, and this introduction with Sanji simply wouldn't have worked with the way they've characterized Nami up to this point. In the manga, she turns on her charm to Sanji and he swoons and gives her a free meal. But that wouldn't work for this version of Nami. So instead, Sanji turning his charm on her and her just being like, what is happening right now, was great for the characters that the live action are. And I like this smooth, charming version of Sanji because the manga Sanji is very smooth and he's very cool, and he's also very over the top when it comes to women, and kind of merging that smoothness with the way he interacts with women in this way, in a less over the top manga anime kind of way, I think works for this interpretation of Sanji. And I also love that they used that as a springboard to do more crew dynamic characterization, with Zoro overusing the word madam, and then them all kind of teasing her and her getting that little smile out of it, and you can see them bonding and becoming closer, and I thought that was great. We also got to see him handling a fight in this scene rather than starting a fight, which means that right off the bat we get to see his charm, we get to see his love for food, his conflict with Zeph, as well as him in action, his incredible fighting skill, all right here in this introductory scene. I thought they did a great job with it. So the live action has to do some condensing, some moving scenes around, some streamlining. I know that, I expected that. So they move Sanji sharing his dream with Luffy here. And it was a nice scene, but these panels are some of my favorite panels in this arc, so it didn't quite hit as much as I would have loved it to. They also moved Jin to here and gave him a much, much smaller role, which they have to do if they're cutting Don Krieg pretty much entirely. So we did still get to see Sanji's line in the sand, we don't cross this, if someone's hungry, I feed them. End of story. We do get that introduced to him, introduced to this character, which is good. That's an important piece of his character, and it has to be here. He has to have some sort of pushback on that so that we can see this is not a line I cross. I will feed this person. I don't care if they can pay. I don't care who they are. I don't care about the consequences. Someone's hungry. I feed them. That's an important piece of his character. And I don't care a ton about Don Krieg. He's not a villain that I'm super attached to, though I do like the fight that he brings at the end of Baratier, but I understand the desire to remove him to condense, though I think there are some consequences that come with that. One, Jin doesn't play as big of a role as I want him to. Not because I'm extremely attached to him, but because one of the most important pieces of Sanji's character is his kindness, which is emphasized in these episodes, but the fight with Jin not only emphasizes the importance of that much stronger, but it also shows that Sanji's kindness, while sometimes it doesn't make logical sense to display that level of kindness because you can't pay for your food, because you're bringing back a greater villain, because it could potentially harm things. Like, it doesn't make sense. You should not be kind in this moment, Sanji. But it doesn't matter. He won't cross that line. It also shows this fight with Jin and with Don Krieg. It also shows that Sanji's kindness has an effect on the world and can move mountains. It can change a person's life. It did change Jin's life. So Sanji's kindness is emphasized in this arc, and I'm okay with cutting Don Krieg and pulling Jin back a little bit. I think that the sacrifice in that is sacrificing the emphasis on Sanji's kindness, and I wish they had found a way to emphasize it just a little bit harder than they did in these episodes. They did emphasize it. I would just love just a little bit more. And that's not a complaint because, again, I loved these episodes. These episodes were near perfect to me. So this isn't me complaining about, man, you had to remove stuff and I don't like that. That's not what's happening here. It's just me talking through my very complicated thoughts about this change that makes sense to me, but there's so much complexity to this arc that I want to see. And I'm just talking through my feelings. Something that they added that I really love is the kind of breather scene where Usopp gets drunk and he's telling stories and he's dancing and he's being a goober. And you have the scene with Zoro and Nami bonding. I thought that was really charming. Again, I think it's really important to have these scenes of the crew bonding because that is in the manga, and those scenes are some of my favorite breather scenes in the manga, is just them hanging out on the ship, chilling, talking. I wish there was more of these breather scenes happening on the Mary instead of it continually happening in bars, because I want to see more of the Mary. But regardless, I really loved this scene. I love seeing those two connect and bond, the two kind of more gruff members of the crew drinking together and trying to guess about each other's past, sharing a little bit about each other, bonding. That, I think, is so important, and I think they're doing a great job at showing the crew dynamics in this series so far. I also love when Zoro does challenge Mihawk, we see how concerned Nami is for him. We see how much she has grown to care about him and how this is terrifying to her. We see it in that scene. We see it later when she's challenging Luffy and she's like, you have to stop him. You can't let him do this. We see Luffy's emphasis and his value on people's dreams and that he won't stand in the way of people pursuing their dreams. I also love that we see Nami declare friendship to someone seemingly for the first time in her life. It's telling Zoro, because you're my friend, you idiot. And he brushes her off because he needs to, because he has to go pursue his dream. But we see how much that affects her, how much that declaration was really important to her. It was a big move for her, and getting brushed off shifts a lot for her. These little things add depth to our characters and show that there's a lot more to them than just this kind of baseline characterization of something that's been created before, which I think they're doing really good at. For the fight, they kept the little blade. They kept the line, I don't hunt rabbits with cannons. The little dagger against the two swords is a little bit harder to accept in live action because it is so very manga and anime to do something like this. So to see it in live action, it's a little bit harder to accept. But this fight was extraordinary. Their moves, their positioning, their interactions, Zoro refusing to back up when the blade hits him, the respect that he gains from Mihawk, him holding his arms out, refusing to turn his back, and Mihawk telling him, grow stronger and find me. I'll be waiting. I love it. Mihawk, they got the perfect guy for Mihawk. I love his delivery of lines. I love his look. I love this casting for Mihawk. I loved this scene. I thought it was beautiful. And Mackenyu, I like him as Zoro, but his lines can sometimes be a little bit hit or miss for me. Sometimes they land perfectly and sometimes they don't. This scene with him declaring, I will never lose again. I will never lose for you again. His performance, that declaration to Luffy, it hit. I loved it. So again, with them removing Don Krieg and most of Jin's role in this, that means that this whole arc is a little bit more sectioned off in the way they do it. So the Zoro and Mihawk fight was far more isolated, and then they have to isolate Zoro by giving him this grievous injury that he seemingly may not recover from and just kind of knocking him out for the whole episode 6. This was fine, though I do have a nitpick in that that they kept emphasizing how much blood he was losing. He's losing too much blood. It's bleeding everywhere. This is terrible. And he wasn't, you know? It just looked like they had put the makeup on for the wound and then just left it. So they're like going on and on about how much blood he's losing, but he's not losing any blood. It's just a stationary wound. So that broke my immersion a little bit. I mean, the wound looked great, but he just wasn't losing that much blood. Even in the scene where he declared that he would never lose again, when he just got the wound, still just not that much blood. Though some things that I did like about them emphasizing this wound and knocking Zoro out for this period of time was I love, they've put a lot of emphasis on Luffy's love for food throughout these episodes so far. And when Nami says, go get, I'm pretty sure it was Nami said, go get Sanji or something like that, or go to the kitchen. I don't remember. When Nami sends Luffy off and Luffy's response is, I'm really not hungry right now, Nami. That was great because it shows how freaked out he actually is. I love Nami reading Nolan's story to Zoro. That was a nice little Easter egg for the fans. And I love the scene leading into Luffy going and grabbing Zeph and Sanji to help. I love the scene of Zeph and Sanji cooking together. I think that was really important to show the balance of their relationship since there's so much strife between them. But also, I like that they worked together. First of all, that as soon as Sanji realized Zoro was in trouble, and Zeph was like, yeah, this isn't gonna work out, like, sorry, kid. And Sanji was like, I'm going to help. If someone needs help, I'm going to help. Obviously, he's no ship's doctor or anything, but it emphasizes his kindness and his desire to help. So while it's done in a way that's unique to the live action, any emphasis on Sanji's kindness since we cut the Jin stuff is good for me. The flashback is my favorite flashback so far. It was very loyal to the original, and I thought it packed more of a punch. Child actors are tough. Some child actors are extremely talented, but a lot of times it's hard to get the full impact and the full emotion out of scenes like this. And a lot of the flashback scenes just haven't quite hit for me, but this one did. This one hit. I think that they were so loyal to it. They did such a good job of bringing all the emotion. They gave it the right amount of time, unlike Usopp's, which they totally rushed. They gave it the right amount of time. And again, I'm watching this with my husband, who, again, knows very little about the series other than just like my crazed crying when I read a scene that's really amazing. But he just really doesn't have a lot of context with anything, and he doesn't know what to anticipate at any point. And the scene when they cut to the bloody rock and then the leg, and he realized what Zeph had done, he audibly gasped. He was like, what? He really did that for Sanji? It was so good. It hit for me. It hit for the person who doesn't care anything about One Piece until the live action, and now he cares so much. My one nitpick in regards to this flashback is that in the flashback, they chose to emphasize Sanji's love for gourmet cuisine instead of emphasizing his carelessness with throwing away leftovers, which is a shame because I really like Sanji's his care for not wasting food, how that developed, where that came from. And I think that they could have easily left that in. I think that making that change to make it all about fine cuisine instead of about scarcity and learning that lesson is unfortunate. I don't think that change needed to happen. But that's my one nitpick. I thought this flashback was perfect otherwise. Another thing that the live action added that I thought was great was the bonding between Sanji and Luffy over leadership. Luffy is really overwhelmed in this moment, seeing one of his crew members on death's door and realizing how dangerous what they're doing actually is and what the consequences could be. It rattles him. He doesn't know how to make a decision. He doesn't know what to do. He's not trusting his instincts anymore. And Sanji, tying Sanji's flashback into him teaching Luffy about being a great leader, I thought was both very clever and a great way to show these two bonding and having a relationship built. Now, fixating more on the Jin thing. Again, I thought that these episodes were near perfect. I have to talk through it all. So thanks for bearing with me. One way that they filled the gap of cutting Don Krieg is by introducing Arlong sooner, which they've already introduced him, but this is the first time that he gets a big presence. And I think that this change is fine. Again, they have to streamline some things, so cutting out some of the side stuff that doesn't come back around and instead introducing things earlier and it's fine. I think it's fine. However, I'm not sure how I feel about the fishmen. I think Arlong, okay, so they chose to use practical effects. They chose to use prosthetics for the fishmen. And I think that Arlong's face looks amazing. I love the prosthetics for Arlong, and I love the actor for this role as well. I think his voice hits. I think he is able to act past the prosthetics, act through the prosthetics really strongly. His body, Arlong is naturally a very large man, and having these big, beefy prosthetics with a very human body feels like it makes him seem a little bit off balance, and it also takes away some of his intimidation factor. It's not the end of the world. I just wish they had found a way to scale his body a little bit better. And the other fishmen, I think, look bad, especially that one. He looks like rubber, and not like fishy rubber. He just looks like he's wearing a lot of prosthetics. And the way he moves when they first come into the restaurant and they first sit at the table, he moves like this. Because the prosthetics are so big and bulky that he can't act through them. So maybe that's why they gave Arlong a humanoid body instead of scaling him up, because of this. When you put too much prosthetics on someone. But yeah, that fishman, even when Sanji is fighting, which looked amazing. Oh my goodness, Taz does an incredible job with Sanji's fight scenes. When Sanji kicks him and he doesn't move because he can't move, I just didn't work. But other than that little factor, the fight with Sanji versus the Arlong pirates was good. Taz, again, looks amazing. I know he trained really hard for these fight scenes, and he knocked it out of the park, I think. I also love Luffy telling Sanji, I'm gonna fight with you. I'm gonna stand with you because you fed me, and then bonding over that. I just like these little moments of Sanji and Luffy connecting. And we kept Luffy ending up in the water, this time by Arlong's hand, and we kept Sanji saving him. I'm so glad with the condensing and the changing that we did. I'm so glad that they didn't miss this, and it hit, I think. It was such a good scene. It landed. It's one of my favorite scenes in these two episodes is Luffy in the water, not being able to swim, not being able to save himself, and then Sanji going in after him. Zeph didn't tell him to do it this time. He did it himself. Okay, but with the music and with the timing, it was perfect. I loved it so much. I'm so happy because, again, there have been a couple of really important scenes that haven't fully landed for me, but this scene hit exactly the way I wanted it to. I loved it. I love Sanji's exit in the manga with the whole of the restaurant turning on him and lying in order to get him to go because they want him to chase his dreams. I understand having to make it more of a small scale conversation between him and Zeph because, again, they can only do so much. So while I definitely like the manga exit or the manga pushing him away better, I did really love Zeph's line when he told him, no, staying here is giving up. Staying here is quitting. Go chase your dreams. Then we cut to Zoro and Luffy, and when Zoro wakes up and Luffy jumps on this injured man that near died and is still barely not dead, I was like, stop it, you're gonna kill him now. And again, McKinyu's lines can sometimes be hit or miss for me, but this line when he tells him, you're my captain and I'm your first mate, I loved it. I thought it was great. I also really liked when they were all on the ship and Sanji walks on the ship and everybody's happy, and then Zoro's just like, why are we bringing the waiter? That's great because I like the Sanji Zoro dynamic. So while it may not look the same in the live action, I'm glad they're keeping some of it at least. And speaking of scenes that hit, Sanji's exit was beautiful. Zeph's line, keep your feet dry, and then Sanji breaking down and telling him all this time in your crappy restaurant, thank you for putting up with me. The breaking in his voice, the delivery between him and the Zeph actor was so strong. This was the scene where I was full on sobbing, tears rolling down my face. Pitiful, just pitiful. Then I rewound the scene and I watched it again and I cried some more. And again, my husband, who didn't know what to expect and who doesn't have an emotional attachment to this, cried too. You did it, live action. I'm so proud of you. And then we end with Buggy, which I didn't mention, but Arlong captured Buggy, and he's the reason Arlong was able to find them, and now they have Buggy, and I'm happy about this. More Buggy is great for me. Anyway, as you can tell, I have a lot of feelings about these episodes, and again, I'm not mad at them for changing things. I knew they had to. I just had to talk through my complicated relationship with the changes, but these episodes were incredible. The first 2 episodes, I gave a 7 and a 7.5. The next 2 episodes, I gave a 4. And then these 2 are like a 9, 9.5. This is what I wanted out of the live action. This is what I was hoping for. When we saw the trailers and we saw the behind the scenes stuff, and I got really hyped and I got really excited, and I was like, this is gonna be good in its own right. It's not gonna be the manga. It's not gonna be the anime. It will be different, but it will be good as its own thing. The first 2 episodes, I felt like, okay, we're almost there. This is enjoyable. The next 2, I didn't feel that way about. And then this is what I wanted from the live action. It's not perfect, but this is what I wanted. The beats are being hit. The characters are having their own layers, and their own version of it is working and having its own depth. And while there have been several emotional beats that haven't landed for me, the emotional beats in this arc did. I loved these episodes, and as I said, before I move on to Arlong Park, I'm going to watch them again just because I'm not ready to move on from them yet. I really enjoyed them. They're not as good as the source material, but why would I expect that? They're great in their own right, and I had a great time with them. Whew, all right, there you go. More crazed ramblings from a random girl online. I hope you liked it. I have merch. Some of it is One Piece related. Check it out if you want to, or check out my Patreon, where we're doing live streams of these and like hanging out and chatting, not live streams, watch parties of each episode. We're hanging out, we're chatting, we're having a good time. I do live chapter readings over there. We talk a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's in the description if you want it. Next week on Monday, 1 week from today, I will talk about the final episodes in the live action, and then there will probably be a live stream at some point after that where we can hang out and talk about the live action all together, and y'all can come at me about what you liked and didn't like, and about all my bad takes. I post videos every Monday and Friday on this channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays on my review channel, which is always linked in the description. I'll see you again soon. Bye.